Hey everybody, Jim Sammons here, and welcome to the Kayak Fishing Show live. Brought to you by, as always, by Ballast Point Brewing Company. Not having a beer today, having water, but Ballast Point, as well as all of our other great sponsors, which are scrolling across the bottom. Seagar Fluorocarbon, of course, Jackson Kayak, Ray Marine, Sigler Reels, Yak Attack, Werner Paddles, Standard Horizon. I'm always forgetting one. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well today. If you are new to the show, every Tuesday and Thursday, if I'm not fishing, we do these live shows where we play our old episodes of the show with live commentary, question and answer, that sort of thing. Every Tuesday is the Jackson Kayak years. Every Thursday is the Ocean Kayak years, the old stuff, as in like this is from season 2. Today's episode is from season 2. We're now in season 11. So, we've been at this a little while. Before we get going on the live show, I had a couple things I wanted to touch on and chat about. First off, our condolences to our good friend Gunnar in Sweden. He lost his very best fishing buddy today, his dog Benji. If you've seen some of his videos, I mean, he's always out fly fishing on his kayak with his golden retriever on his kayak. It's just sweetest dog. We had the pleasure of hanging out with him several times, and just a great dog. And I mean, they were truly best friends out there on their kayak, and I feel really bad. His dog Benji passed away today or yesterday. I'm not really sure, but he posted about it today. Anyway, so if you're a dog person, like we are dog people around this house, it's a sad day when you lose your dog. I've got 4 dogs, so I definitely know what it's like to lose your dogs. Liam Young watching from our Kayak Fishing Tales YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Eric, how are you? Thanks for joining us. Daniel Schumacher, how was fishing? Glad to have you back. Tuesday I didn't do a live show because I did go fishing and hoop netting. And on both counts, it was slow. The fishing was very, very slow, and the hoop netting slower. We got 2 legals is all. We got probably another 10 that were that much too short. I mean, literally that much too short. And then a bunch that were way short. But the keepers were definitely in hiding. It was a fairly full tide. I mean, a lot of tidal movement, I should say, which makes it a lot tougher. So that may have been the issue. I don't know, but it wasn't a great one. But it's always a great time to be out on the water with your buddies. And it was I go out with my friend Matt. We usually go on his boat, but his boat is being used for promotional thing because he's a part of Ballast Point Brewing Company's fishing team, and his boat's all wrapped Ballast Point, and they needed his boat on location for something. So it was the first time we'd done hoop netting off of my boat. So just kind of learning a different system, totally different layouts. His is a saltwater bass boat. Mine's a pilot house. So, but we had a great time. And of course we had 1 or 2 Ballast Point beers while we were out there. So hanging out on the water with your good friend is always cool. So on that note, though, I want to talk a little bit about some kayak safety and the reason for this. And, being a kayaker, kayak angler myself for, 30 years, since the late 80s, basically, I never really thought about it as much when I was on my kayak. Started noticing it more being on the boat and seeing kayakers, and then being out on the water at night and kayak fishermen. It just shows me more and more how invisible kayak anglers are. So here's the situation. We're out hoop netting. There's a lot of boats out hoop netting at night, and it's pretty dark. And there was a lot of kayaks on the water the other night. And I'm telling you, they're invisible. Even if they have lights on, they're invisible. It's very rare that one had a light on that was bright enough. And what we were noticing, we were fishing around where the bait barge is for a short amount of time. And there was probably 12 kayak anglers out there. And the problem being is the kayaks are so low to the water. So even if they had their light up on a pole, it usually wasn't super bright, but that light is still very low to the water. And in that area, there's tons of lights on the bait barges. And then the military in the background, a lot of lights from them. And then the hillside with a lot of lights from them. So even though some of these guys had lights on and some of them were lit better than others, they were invisible. I had a guy slide up next to me, and 10 feet away from my boat before I realized he was there. Had another guy come paddling through that area with no lights on at all. And I'm like, dude, you are invisible. He goes, oh, well, I usually paddle out of the way if there's a boat. What if the boat's going too fast? If they don't see you, it's a dangerous situation. And I certainly don't want anybody getting hurt out there. Like I said, I always thought that with my one light or my headlight, I was fine. But I'm telling you, these guys were invisible. And I want you kayak anglers to realize that you are really, really hard to see. There was a person on a tandem with a kid on the front that was so poorly lit. It was just scary. So I don't know. These are all white lights on the bait boat. Maybe having a different color light, maybe having a strobe light. I don't know. Need to make a better effort to make yourself seen. Now, when you get out in the open water, away from all these lights, yeah, those single light, it's a little easier to see. Certainly better than nothing. But in these areas where there's a lot of background lights and there's a lot of boat traffic, and you guys, the kayak anglers, we are so low to the water. It's so hard to see you. Like I said, I just don't want anybody getting hurt out there, because I guarantee you, if a boat hits you, the boat's going to win. And, that's not a fight you want to get into. So by all means, please, please, please make yourself seen. Assume nobody sees you. And, like I said, some of those boats are hauling. There was a Navy security boat that was hauling ass around the area. No way he would have seen a kayaker if he had come across them. God, no, they're military security. They probably have FLIR, night vision, all that. But yeah, like I said, I just can't reiterate it enough. I've seen this on foggy days where, you got guys wearing, they're on a gray or dull kayak and wearing dull clothes and no lights at all. You're invisible. We as kayak anglers are invisible. Throw in some boat chop and swell. Nighttime, it's just that much worse. So please try to be safe out there. And like I said, make sure you are seen. I tell you one thing that works really quite well is making sure you have reflective material. And I'll say this one thing also. I always find paddlers easier to see than peddlers, because with a paddler, you get that flash off the blade of their paddle. And there'll be a glint of light off it. You tend to I notice people paddling more than people are pedaling, because the pedaling guys are just a static. You just either feet are doing this, but there's not a whole lot of movement out there. There's not a whole lot to catch any light or to catch your eye. So again, just please be safe out there. Make sure. And as I said, I have come to notice this now that I have a boat, much more than I paid attention to it. As a kayaker, I always thought I could be seen. But now being in the boat, I can see how invisible kayakers are. So please be safe. Okay, so we'll put that to bed. And again, just a couple things here before we get going on our live episode. And again, if you're new to this, every Tuesday and Thursday, we air old episodes of the show. So I hope you can join us. They air here on YouTube as well as on Kayak Fishing Tales. Let's see a couple more comments here. Roy Boyd, even in daylight, I've been seeing how we disappear. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how hard we are to see. So I just want, I said, it was eye-opening to me as a kayak angler for so many years. It was eye-opening to me to get in the boat and then realize how much the kayaks really are invisible. So, take that to heart. Facebook user must be watching from the Kayak Fishing Show group page. If you click that thing, it'll let you see who is actually making the comment. Great to learn from your experience. Safety first always. Cheers, mate. Yeah, and for sure. And by all means, please wear that PFD. VHF radio. Yeah, VHF radios. Always carry a VHF radio. Always carry the, just happen to have it here. Wow, that disappears with the green screen. That is a PLB, a personal locator beacon. So I always carry one of those. But, the main thing is, like I said, at night, make sure you're seen. Having a flag in the daytime that's high up. Actually, in that picture, which hand is it? That one. You can see that flag on the back of my kayak. Stuff like that helps. If that was reflective material, that would really help. But, again, a light. And like I said, the thing for us the other night, I reiterate it, is there were so many lights on these bait barges. They weren't lighting up the kayaks at all. They're just lighting up the bait barges, that the little tiny light on a kayak just kind of blended into the whole mess. And there was actually one of the local sport boats was pulling up to the bait barge, and he had to yell at the kayakers to get them out of the way so he could pull up to the bait barge. So, make sure you're seen. Anyway, Douglas, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Eric Gladson, you bring up a good point about white light versus colored. The arguments about colored was that kayak would be mistaken for a boat with the ability to get out of the way. But after hearing this, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, and there is that. There is that about being mistaken for a boat. So again, maybe it's a blue light. Maybe it's a flashing light. So at least that catches the eye as opposed to that one solid light. Something so you can be seen. Charles, I see you too, man. And my condolences to everybody. That Kwanzaa Henderson passed away. I know he had a lot of great friends. I met him one time. Very, very nice guy. And he passed away last week. And, cancer sucks. We'll say that. And I think that's what got Benji too, was cancer. So anyway, the other thing I wanted to touch on here was I got an email a few weeks ago from a gentleman from a company called Bait Shark and baitshark.com. He asked me if I'd be interested in seeing his new product for carrying live bait. We use live bait tanks, full circulating live bait tanks on our kayaks here to carry live mackerel. Back in the day before the bait tanks, we used the old Plano bait sleds. And, dragging something was a lot of effort as opposed to, carrying a bait tank on the back. Some guys have gone now to a bait tube, but those still, are a bit of drag. So this gentleman came up with, he calls the Bait Shark. He is looking for licensing on this. And it just arrived just before the show, so I thought I would show it. It's a pretty interesting design. So it's like boogie board material here as a float. You can see it kind of rocks up on the front, torpedo shaped on the actual bucket. It's very light. It's actually, and I don't know if it's going to be that way production wise or not, but it is 3D printed. Throw your bait in this way, spring loaded. So really easy to get your hand in there, throw your bait in. The water goes in through here and it's got some holes. So it's got good circulation. He mentioned he might watch this live show. So I'm curious why it doesn't have holes on the other end. so water to flow out a little bit easier, even less resistance, and keep that fresh flow in that way instead of going this way. But I'm sure he's got some reasoning behind it. Definitely lighter. I actually, let's do this. So this is their website. So I said baitshark.com. And like I said, it's a pretty interesting thing. I mean, for a guy who maybe isn't carrying bait all the time, who just wants an easy solution, it seems like it's pretty good. He's got a video here, and I can punch that. It's just going to be in that little corner there. But it does seem to glide across the surface pretty well. Much more so than the traditional bait bucket. I will say this: if you're going to do it, make sure you are towing it in that position, so it is behind the kayak, not up against the side, banging it. That always makes a difference. And there's the traditional Plano bait sled that we always used. And you can see how much turbulence there is from that. And then this one's just gliding along. Again, I haven't tried it. I don't know how well it's going to work for baits like live mackerel that really need that circulation of water. But like I said, it is nice and light and looks like a nice quality product. See if there was Norman from Curacao. How are you, Norman? Love Curacao. Would love to go back to Curacao. Pops Avery, I get that question a lot. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Pops. If it's a bucket too. Oh, is that what we're saying? It can be used as a bucket, so that way, so the water doesn't flow out the back. Is that what we're saying? It is a bucket too. Oh, I gotcha. So it is a, you can carry it this way by this handle on here. That's okay. That makes sense. But as far as how well your bait lives in it, would it be better to have circulation out the back? But if you're just using it as both, that's pretty genius. Like I said, it's super light. So again, that was at, I still have it up there, baitshark.com. You can see their videos and more explanation of the product. But if you like to fish live bait and you don't want to go to the whole expense of having a full circulating live bait system on your kayak, seems like a pretty cool deal. Like I said, I mean, just going by the videos, I would have to see, I haven't used it, so I can't give any personal statements on it. It comes with this big plastic clip, so you can clip that to the back of the kayak or to another rope. Like I said, you definitely want to make it long enough so it's behind the kayak, so it's not banging against the side of your boat. But pretty cool. So that was that. So today's so that's why there's no holes in the bottom, so it can be as a, got it. Oh, this is Matt. So Pops Avery is the actual maker of it. Okay. I'm glad you could join us, Matt. Sorry for the little bit of confusion there. But I'm glad you're here to answer those questions. So people can use it as a bucket, like I said, and as a sled as well. It looks like size-wise, it's big enough to hold a few nice size mackerel. And I know he in comments he made to me, he says he's loaded up with menhaden and the baits lived in it all day. So very cool. And like I said, great alternative to the people who want to carry bait from time to time, but not, like I said, go to the expense of putting a full live bait tank on their kayak, or they just don't fish as much. So the live bait tank doesn't make sense. So anyway, let me stop that screen share. So today's episode was, like I said, this was from many years ago, season 2. My buddy Ed Howerton, who is he's an expert angler. I mean, does a lot of fishing, all kinds of fishing. all the bass fishing tournaments here, saltwater bass tournaments. And we were chatting, and this trip to Mazatlan came up to go to Anglers Inn, and I invited Ed to come with us because I mean he knows more about bass fishing than I did, particularly at that time. So there's 2 episodes, and so the next episode will be next Thursday. But this episode, Anglers Inn has, or back then had 2 resorts. They had one on Lake Mateos and one on El Salto. El Salto, everybody knows about El Salto. I mean, it's a very famous bass fishing lake down in Mazatlan. I mean, you catch a lot of fish down there. The nice thing about Mazatlan also, you have the saltwater fishery right there. So we actually ended up doing both. The other location we went to was Mateos, and Mateos, just so many fish, fantastic topwater action. They actually had a fish farm for tilapia in the lake as well. So there's a little bit of competition there going on. There was a river. We fished this river behind where we were staying. It was just so much fun. Didn't catch a ton of fish. I haven't watched this episode in years. But absolutely stunningly beautiful, cool place. Anglers Inn, they are all about customer service. And literally, like in the morning, I'd get this knock on my door. Senor Jim, your coffee's ready. Senor Jim, I'm like, yes. And he would come in and he would set down my cup of coffee the way I had ordered it. When we first arrived, I told him how I like my coffee. I'd get that and a little breakfast roll or something like that. And then you'd get up and have breakfast. Once you were there, they wouldn't let you touch a thing. I mean, your fishing gear, anything like that. It was all carried for you down to where you were launching. Like I said, customer service was beyond belief. It was the first time I'd been someplace that was just like over the top customer service, almost like, look, I can get my own stuff. Excuse me. You would tell them, you better decide what your favorite drink was, like on day 1, because that will be your drink for the rest of the week. I mean, literally, at the end of the fishing day, we would pull into the little marina they had set up. You'd step off your boat, off your guide boat, off the kayaks, whatever, and they would have I can't remember. I wish I remembered the guy's name, but he was there, and he had a tray full of margaritas or gin and tonics or rum and cokes, whatever your favorite drink was. As soon as you stepped off the boat, here it was. And then you pull up in there, and they've got your appetizers, and I mean, it was just everything about it was just service. Absolutely amazing. Mateos was a great lake topwater wise. I seem to recall doing real well. The problem was that Billy Chapman Jr. was the one who started El Salto and with his father, as well as this Mateos Lake. And unfortunately, I don't think it's there anymore. From what the last I saw, they drained it down to about 4% of the water. So I know he had shut down his operation there. Whether it ever got going again, I don't know. I tried to look it up today, just so I had some, current information. There's still information about Mateos Lake, but nothing looked current. So the last one I found was that it had been drained down to about 4%, but I never saw anything about them refilling it or anything like that. So this was kind of that once in a lifetime opportunity that we were able to fish this great place at Mateos, and before it went goodbye. The second part of the show, and I don't know if it's in this episode or the next one, I said we did some saltwater fishing, but we also did some fishing at El Salto. So let me set it up so we can actually see it. There it is. So with no further ado, this is the Kayak Fishing Show, Season 2, Episode, whatever it was, 11, I think, of our trip to Mateos Lake in Mazatlan, Mexico.
This week on the Kayak Fishing Show, my friend Ed Howerton and I are visiting Billy Chapman at his Anglers Inn Resort on Lake Mateos in Mazatlan, Mexico. We're going to be going after some big largemouth bass and lots of them. Stick around. This one's going to kick bass.
At the forefront of any sport, you inevitably find someone pushing the limits. While kayak fishing has been exploding in popularity, Jim Sammons has been doing just that.
Yeah, look at these. Nice.
From the seat of his ocean kayak, Jim challenges the world's top game fish and puts his kayak fishing skills to the ultimate test.
Never fought a kayak, have you, fish?
From freshwater to saltwater, Jim's mission is simple: to discover the best fishing destinations in the world and prove that anything is possible from a kayak.
I got the boat in it. Oh yeah.
The Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by Ocean Kayak, makers of the Trident series of fishing kayaks. Ex Officio, clothing, footwear, and gear for the adventurous spirit. Standard Horizon, nothing takes to the water like Standard Horizon. Maui Jim, eliminate glare, turn up the color. Scotty, the way to fish. Seagar, the inventors of fluorocarbon. And Yakima rack systems and trailers. Take it easy. This week on the Kayak Fishing Show, Jim Sammons is in Mazatlan, Mexico, with pro angler Ed Howerton to explore the world-class bass fishing that surrounds the Anglers Inn on Lake Mateos.
Well, I was kind of raised on this kind of fishing, but in the early 80s, I decided to start fishing saltwater and hardly look back. Haven't really fished largemouth bass in at least 15 years. But comes back to you.
Right now we're sitting on Lake Mateos, 2 hours and 20 minutes from our Lake El Salto Lodge. And we're on Lake Mateos here. And we're hoping to get into some fish here. We're just getting started. And then from here we're going to fish the river, float in the river, and we're going to mix it up between the lake and the river on this trip.
Billy Chapman Jr. is more than just an exceptional bass angler and the owner of Anglers Inn International. An outfitter with 5-star lodges on both Lake Mateos and Lake El Salto, Billy has been at the forefront of sport fishing for decades and was recently inducted into the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame for his contributions towards promoting successful angling and fishery conservation on Mexico lakes.
Well, I started when I was 17 on ducks and dove, running an airboat down in Los Mochis. And then from there we went to Lake Dominguez, opened up Lake Bacharach with my father. And then from there I went to the Amazons for 6 years and started to peacock bass and putting lodges down in the Amazon territory. Then I came back to Mexico and we stocked Lake El Salto with 100% pure slaughter strain bass. This lake is 55,000. Oh, we got a fish on. I love that.
The lake isn't as well known as the nearby Lake El Salto because it doesn't tend to hold as many 10-plus pound bass. But Mateos is quickly gaining a reputation as one of the world's top bass fishing lakes because of the sheer number of quality largemouth.
There's a method to my madness. it's a chess game.
Although Lake El Salto and Lake Mateos are both firmly established as world-class trophy bass fishing destinations, it's Billy's goal to show Jim, Ed, and the rest of the angling world that the lakes are also two of the ultimate kayak fishing destinations. What do you got, Ed?
A nice little 2.5, 3-pounder down here in the river below Mateos. Got him on a little pro line spinnerbait.
Stay tuned as Jim, Ed, and Billy paddle their way into some epic kayak bass fishing holes on Lake Mateos.
You ready to go to that secret spot? You can just about see his head sticking up there, you know, just nobbing his head, yes.
Is that where the mermaids are and the seahorses and big fish?
Big fish and 19th hole.
I'm there, brother. I'm there.
Welcome back to the Kayak Fishing Show with Jim Sammons. This week's episode is brought to you by Ex Officio and their Soul Cool line of clothing with ice fill technology that actually dissipates heat to provide a cooling effect. Check the Soul Cool shirts out at exofficio.com. This week, Jim and San Diego-based pro tournament angler Ed Howerton are in Mexico on the hunt for monster bass. Having flown into Mazatlan, the guys take a 3-hour drive north to Lake Mateos.
Living the good life, baby. Living the good life.
Arriving at Anglers Inn Lodge, Jim and Ed excitedly drop their bags, grab their rods, and head directly to the water to get their kayaks ready for their first day on Lake Mateos.
We are getting ready to go out on our first morning here at Mateos and do some freshwater largemouth bass fishing. I'm really excited. I haven't fished for bass in forever. So it's going to be fun, man.
The sun's just coming up and we're fixing to catch them on top water. This lake is famous for topwater fishing and spinnerbait. So we're going to start off with the topwater first and then go to the spinnerbait a little bit later. This lake is 55,000 acres, fed by 2 rivers. It's a river lodge, which is unique. The lodge is only 3 to 4 minutes. Oh, fish on. Don't you love this when this happens? Getting back to what we were talking about, topwater heaven. You're looking to catch a lot of fish on topwater. Lake Mateos is your best bet in all of Mexico. We guarantee it.
That was like the second cast. I actually threw it up. It landed on the bank. Two cranks off the bank. He got hit.
Nice.
Was that top water?
Who doesn't like topwater?
Super fishy. We're the only ones on the lake. And for that reason, it really doesn't make a big difference on how you want to catch them on top. I like walking the dog myself. Dog.
Baby. Yeah, man. Yeah. Got that on this little popper here. Yeah, man.
Over the past few years, a number of kayak anglers have entered big boat tournaments to see how well kayaks can do against their gas-powered brethren. But Ed Howerton took a different approach. As a highly successful fresh and saltwater tournament angler, Ed decided to spice things up by entering a kayak fishing tournament without ever having held a paddle.
The Classic Navy put on a tournament in San Diego Bay, and I'd never been in a kayak in my life. And I decided it's kind of been my background, my playground. The boat kid out there all the time. So I decided to fish a tournament and ended up winning it. Thank you.
There we go. That's a good fish. There we go. There we go. There we go. Right on. Milk it.
With an incredible first morning under their belts, the guys load their kayaks and make their way back to Anglers Inn to relax, recoup, and prepare for a bass-filled afternoon. The Anglers Inn Lodge on Lake Mateos is unlike any other fishing lodge that you'll encounter. The intimate, luxury, full-service resort holds only a small number of guests at a time, and the attentive staff go out of their way to make sure that your time on Mateos is unforgettable for all the right reasons.
What's the logo on the back of everybody's shirts? Service is our focus, right?
Service is our focus. You know, I've always felt it as an outfitter that's one thing you can always guarantee in a trip. Can't guarantee about catching 100 bass a day, but service is something that's there that should always be there, and we guarantee it. I mean, I got a staff that's been with me some of them have been with me for 30 plus years. You see the same faces year after year, which I really think makes people feel very comfortable coming down and seeing Jose's and Tony's and Sammy's and the famous Ramon. You know, man, we got people that run. I mean, literally, they're watching your beer, and when you get down to 22%, I mean, there it is. And we're real proud of that. We built our brand and our reputation on service, and that's one thing we'll always promise to deliver on.
Pure luxury, man.
And don't underestimate Lake Mateos. With a 14-4 record, the big fish are here. We're just getting familiar with the lake. We're going on our third season. It's just a phenomenal lake for your family, kids, customers. You don't have to have a lot of experience to catch fish here at Lake Mateos. So give us a call, 1-800-GOT-A-FISH, or go to anglersinn.com. And we got a large world, so you can mix it up with everything: freshwater, saltwater, shotguns.
As the midday sun drops, Billy knows that the bass will soon start to hit the surface, and so the guys run to their boats with visions of more bass madness.
And that's one of the cool things about the setup they have here at Anglers Inn is you really have a full day of fishing. I mean, we were on the water this morning at 5:30 and fish for several hours, come in, have lunch, a siesta, and then you're back at it again and you're fishing till dark. So if you're looking for a place where you're really going to get your money's worth, fishing wise, a lot of hours, you just can't beat this.
Fish.
What you can expect here at Fishing Lake Mateos with Anglers Inn, the numbers are just incredible. Anywhere from 75 to 150 fish a day, ranging anywhere from 1 pound to 8.5 pounds. We do catch an occasional 9, 10, 11. With the lake record standing at 14.4,
Fish.
I just hope we catch it out of a kayak.
Pretty fish.
There you go. It's coming up, coming up. It's coming up, it's a jumper.
This is kind of like La Jolla,
Yeah.
a good yellowtail day.
See what happens when you listen to the guide? Here, cast it over here.
You know, these fish are post-spawn, so they're not, they're not sitting on beds or anything. They're just kind of cruising through here. He heard me. Thanks.
Well, we spent a lot of time fishing different techniques here. We fished the Zoom lizards, got some great fish on those. Fished the big worms and also topwater. Got some really good fish on topwater. This lake is like world renowned for great topwater fishing, and we proved that this morning. What a great fishery and such an exciting way to fish. Watching those big bass just explode on your topwater lure.
14.
Really?
Yeah.
God, I would have guessed these heavier than that. Wow.
Yeah, it takes a big fish.
Yeah. So we'll...
6-pounder.
Nice! Good fish.
If you've spent enough time fishing, there's a good chance you've seen, heard of, or even experienced getting hooked by a fish hook. Although it's never something you want to see happen, there's an easy and relatively painless method of getting a hook out. And that's what we're going to look at in this episode's Kayak Fishing Tip of the Week, brought to you by Ocean Kayak, makers of the Trident Fishing Kayak and the Torque, featuring a Minn Kota motor.
Hello, my name is Billy Chapman Jr., owner.
And before we show this, it's if you're squeamish, this was his idea, his idea to do this. So yeah, but this is a technique that I have used with other people and all that. But luckily I've never had to use it on myself, but great technique. If you ever get hooked with a hook or a lure buried in you, it works fantastic. But said he volunteered to do this.
Founder of Anglers International, and we have a pro tip for you this week. I've been an outfitter for over 33 years, and in my early years and in my teens, I had a situation where a guy had a hook just buried into the tip of his finger where you couldn't push it through and let the barb expose and then cut off the barb and pull it back out. And a customer showed me a technique that is just incredible. Anywhere from the neck up, you don't want to use this technique. In the temple, when you see it in a main vein, but anywhere from the neck down, just in fat tissue, you're going to pop this hook out in seconds. Here's how it works. I know this looks pretty crazy and wild, and why would you want to do something like this? But like I said, I think video says it all, and it will give you the confidence that this technique really, really works. It hurts a little, but not much. Pull it up, bud. And we're gonna bury it, so we have to really, yeah. Okay, let's talk about the proper technique. The first thing you want to do is cut off all extra treble hooks. So there's no chance of another treble hook penetrating your skin during this process. So now you're down to one hook. Get some good strong line. If it's a light line test, double it and wrap it around your fingers so there's no slip involved, or you wrap it around both sides of your palms. You're going to be tight. You slip that underneath the hook where you have the curve of the hook, and you're going to pop it at one time with both hands coming up at the same time exactly. So just put as much pressure and just pop it, not pull. It's a pop with no hesitation. And I always distract, actually, the client and just tell them to look over there or say something to them, and before you know it, it's out. He doesn't even see the pop. So pretty simple. Then throw some alcohol on it.
Nice.
No pain coming out. I mean, that's the honest God truth. You just don't feel it's coming out the same hole that it went in, and the pressure of that line. Don't keep your line away from the hook and then pop it. You start off with your line tight to the hook with a kind of a U in the line, and you're tight, pop. It's done deal. Back to fishing. Could save your next fishing adventure trip.
For more tips and your chance to win a fantastic kayak fishing package that includes an Ocean Kayak Trident fishing kayak and
So have any of you ever had to do that?
Visit kayakfishingshow.com.
I said I've had to do it to somebody else. Never had to do it myself. Thankfully, I've never had a knockwood. I've never had a large hook buried in me. I've always had smaller, like sabiki hooks, notorious for getting you. But I don't know if any of you had to use this technique, but it works really, really well. Dave, that guy is nuts. Yes, he is nuts. I've got some stories about that guy. Maybe I'll share them during the next episode. Interesting cat, old Billy Chapman Jr. Esteban Gutierrez, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. I don't know, where are you nowadays, Esteban? Are you down in Costa Rica? You back home in Florida? Yeah, where are you? So anyway, let's keep her rolling.
When we come back, Jim and Ed show Billy how the kayak really shines as a bass fishing platform, as the guys explore the lower rivers of Mateos, where they find more insane kayak bass fishing action.
Talk to me, dude.
Come to me.
And as I said, for me, we caught more fish, I believe, on the lake, but the river was so beautiful. Such a cool experience just drifting down river fishing all day. It was awesome.
By Yakima and their Rack and Roll trailer. For more information about the Rack and Roll trailer, Visit www.yakima.com. This week, Jim Sammons and Ed Howerton are on search of monster Mexican bass on Lake Mateos with Billy Chapman Jr. After a full and productive day fishing on the lake, the guys decide to explore the nearby Humaya River just below the lodge. Billy has been looking forward to exploring the lower reaches of the river for months, as he expects to find some big, hungry old bass that have never seen a lure. But you need to wait for the right time to do it, because the river is controlled by the dam that forms the lake, and this afternoon is the perfect time.
Once a day, they shut the river down because now they're going to conserve the water for the lake. We're getting real close to our rainy season. So this time of year, they'll keep the gates closed, open them up once a day to hold that water for the growing season, which is November through 1st of May.
There you go. It was more largemouth bass than I've ever caught in my life. So that's a good thing, man.
That's a good thing then, Jim. I tell you, it was my first day of really kayaking, and these guys are teaching me a lot, and it's just awesome to have them down here, and I'm just into it. And if you haven't tried it, you're missing not the boat, the kayak.
When you're getting into kayak fishing, there are two big equipment choices that you need to make. You need to choose an appropriate kayak, and you need to select a paddle. The kayak selection always gets the most attention, but it's really important that you take the time to choose the right paddle as well. And so that's what world champion kayaker and obsessed kayak angler Ken Whiting looks at in this week's Kayaking Tip. Brought to you by Standard Horizon and their new HX851 floating, submersible, handheld VHF radio with GPS and waypoint navigation.
The truth of the matter is that you can get by with pretty much any paddle as long as it'll stand up to the abuse that you put it through. But we use Werner paddles because they're light, they're strong, they let you get the most from every stroke. And even better, they feel really good in your hands. So if you end up spending a lot of time kayak fishing, you'll want to get a good quality paddle like the Werner. It just feels right. Now, the biggest factor dictating the quality and the price of a paddle are the materials that it's made from. And the most common paddle and the cheapest paddle are made from aluminum or fiberglass and plastic blades. And they're decent paddles. They work for a lot of people. Now, the higher end paddles, the highest end paddles even, are carbon fiber. They're stiff, they're strong, and they give you a lot of power. They also feel great in your hands, but you pay for them. Now, paddles have three main parts to them. There's the shaft, there's the power face, which is the side of the paddle that catches water when you take a forward stroke, and then there's the back face, which is the side of the paddle that catches water when you take a back or reverse stroke. Now, paddle length is referred to in centimeters, and for kayak fishing, you'll want to paddle about 230 to 240 centimeters long, depending on the type of kayak you have and how big and long your arms are.
Yeah, I'll pause that just real quick, because now the kayaks have all, this is old when we were all paddlers kayaks. Now the shortest ones people tend to use are 240s, and a lot of guys are using 260s on some of these big boats. And it's not just the width of the boat. A lot of time it's your seat height. With the higher seats, you need that longer paddle as well, because you don't want to be reaching as you're paddling. It should be just here in that torso rotation. You shouldn't have to lean forward. So, as I said, paddles are getting longer for those people that still paddle.
Blade shape is really a personal preference. Obviously, the bigger the blades, the more powerful your strokes, but the more energy it'll take out of you. Now, final decision you have to make has to do with the feather of the paddle or the offset of the paddle. And the offset refers to the different angles that the blades are on. A paddle is feathered so that when you take one stroke, the other blade is slicing through the air. So if it's windy, it actually helps quite a bit. But it only really helps if you're trying to shave a couple seconds off in a race, or that little extra bit really matters. If you're in a windy environment, you probably want to consider a paddle that has a feather. If you're not, you might as well go with a paddle. The blades are in line with each other, has zero offset, zero feather. It's more intuitive to use, and it helps avoid things like tendinitis in the wrist, because you don't have to rotate between each stroke. Well, I hope that helps you choose the right paddle. Keep in mind that you're going to have a more intimate connection with your paddle than any other piece of kayak fishing gear, your kayak included. And so if you can afford a good paddle, it's worth going for a good quality one. Until next time, I'm Ken Whiting, and that's your kayaking tip of the week.
During the production of the Kayak Fishing Show this year, we had the chance to start using the Hero HD GoPro cameras, and we couldn't have been happier with their performance. The wide-angle lens lets you mount the camera.
Oh, this is funny. This is literally
and
when
it's gonna
GoPros
capture
first
all
came
the
out.
action. With a waterproof casing, it can even shoot underwater. You can see GoPro's products and some great sample videos at GoProCamera.com. Not a bad fish.
Yeah,
Lake
GoPro
Mateos
GoPro
has
had
proven
sent us
itself
some
worthy of
cameras.
its reputation as a world-class bass fishing destination. But Billy has a surprise in store for Jim and Ed. Join us next week on the Kayak Fishing Show as Billy Chapman Jr. takes Jim and Ed on a personal tour of his other favorite fishing spots, including a trip to the legendary trophy bass lake El Salto and an offshore tour to the Boiler Rocks off the coast of Mazatlan in search of big roosters.
There we go. Look at that bad boy.
There we go. So, yeah, a couple things. When Ken was doing that thing, talking about paddling, again, this was a little bit older. Back then, when you would get a paddle, you know, your feathering, there weren't as many adjustments. Now you have these incremental feathering on a paddle. So I really prefer, and it's much actually a more natural stroke if you have a slightly feathered paddle. You actually have less wrist roll if you have a slightly feathered paddle. Again, this is if you're paddling properly. So, but yeah, that was funny on the Hero. I forgot totally about that. The GoPro Hero cameras, when they first came out, they sent us some, and they actually, on our Baja trip, which was in our first season of the show, was when we first got them. And they sent it, and we had some kind of suction cup mount, and literally they had overnighted it down to us down in Mexico, down in Baja, Mexico. And we got it on there, suction cup mount. I landed I don't remember, I think it was an amberjack, as I recall. It might have been a rooster. But anyway, I pulled it up on the kayak, and its tail hit the GoPro, and it sank. They didn't tell us that GoPros didn't float. And it literally, the very first Hero GoPro camera they sent us, that they went out of their way to get us down in Mexico, we lost within 5 minutes. It was like, awesome. Didn't win any points with him on that one, that's for sure. Jim says, thanks for the info on Siegler reels. I ordered one yesterday. Awesome, man. What did you order? Did you order the SG, the SGN, the LG, LGN? Like I said, I love that. I love that SGN. I mean, for 99% of what I'm going to catch, the drag that thing has and everything about it is such a sweet reel. If you need some more line capacity, you know, jump up to the SG, or if you really want the big gears, the LG, the LGN. My two favorite reels out of Siegler is the SGN and the LGN. But you can't go wrong with any of them. I mean, just top quality, made in America, lifetime guarantee. So you gotta love that. Edgar Hall, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us. Greg Thomas, how you doing? Oh, so Jim, you got the SG. Awesome. Again, great reel. That's the reel I got for my wife. You know, so I tend to fish a really tight drag, so my line capacity isn't a huge deal. The SG just gives you a little bit more, line capacity, and it's just awesome. Taking it to Mexico to jig, guide us down. Where are you going down to Mexico? I'm so dying to go somewhere. I'm dying to go fishing somewhere. So Anyway, that kind of wraps up our show here today. Remember, we'll be back every Tuesday and Thursday, as long as I'm not out on the water fishing. But every Tuesday, the Jackson Kayak Years. Every Thursday, the older stuff, the Ocean Kayak Years. If you are going out on the water, please, please, please always remember to wear your PFD and keep your battle right side up. Oh, and if you're going out at night, make sure you can be seen. Crazy people. Y'all take care.